What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about what not to do as a customer in a gun shop. So this is just stuff that I've seen at my local gun shop, but this really more applies for me in my area when I go to big box stores. So like a Turner's, Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's, Sportsman Outdoors. You know, Whenever I go to those three, obviously there's way more foot traffic. Every time I go to a local mom and pop operation or just a small business owner of a gun store, I rarely see groups of people there. It's either just me when I walk in, there's already somebody there sometimes, or it's just me and the shop owner. So yeah, so I don't really see that much stuff. The more times that I'm more high alert about safety is when I go to these big box stores, just because I've seen some wild stuff. Like especially like when there's a new. I mean, I was new at some point too. Handling a gun, and I was nervous and all that stuff. When I didn't have that much experience holding and carrying and handling a firearm. Even when I knew it was unloaded, I was always still, I was still shaky and I get nervous. I'm like, man, it's still a scary thing. Handgun is a very real thing. Until you get used to it, it's a very scary thing. There's no shame in admitting that. We're all new at some point, but especially when I'm seeing people doing their safety demonstration and they're still flagging people left and right, handling the gun all crazy, and like, dude, you have to think that every handgun is loaded. Like, treat it as it's loaded every time, no matter if it's clear, if it's a dummy round, whatever the case may be. You got to be careful. So, anyways, first things first. For people that are concealed carry out here in California, keep it in the holster, and or if you're not concealed carry, keep it in the lockbox until the shop owner, shop workers tell you it's safe. Let's make the handoff, right? Because you might be going in there because you want to see like, hey, it's not doing X, Y, Z. Can you take a look? Maybe they'll know something you don't, or whatever the case may be, right? Yeah. So just leave it in the holster. There's no scarier thing than someone just flagging people left and right with a gun that hasn't technically been cleared yet. We can't assume that you've cleared it out before coming in. There's people around, there's kids around. Just got to be careful. So yeah, just keep it in the holster, keep it in the gun case until the shop owner is ready to make that handoff. Make sure everything is good to go. I saw this one video that this guy has like a jar, like it's a shop owner. He has a jar of bullets, and the guy's like, "Hey, what's that jar for?" This jar is a bullet. Every time someone says the gun is cleared, and then they give it to me, and I rack it, and it's not cleared, and the bullet flies out, I put them in that jar. He's like, "Oh wow, how long did it take to fill that up?" And it's like a big old, big jug. Like it was like at least a gallon-sized jar. He's like, "Oh, that filled up in like 2-3 months, less than 2-3 months." I was like, "Wow," and that's him again saying, every time a person hands me their gun and tells me it's already cleared, don't worry about it. And then he goes to check and clear it, and lo and behold, the freaking bullet flies out. The round flies out. So yeah, so you just be careful when you're handling your handguns. We all want to be safe. We all want to go home. We don't want to be our last stop be at the gun store. What else have I seen? When you're going in there, it's okay to ask questions. Like, again, we're all new at some point, but do a little bit of knowledge, do a little bit of research. This is the information age, all this stuff. I guarantee no matter what handgun, whatever gun you're looking for, there is a video on it on YouTube. So when you're going to go let's say you buy your first gun, for instance, right? There's a plethora of guns in the case counter. There's so many things to choose from, especially at a big box store. People are trying to handle business as well. There's a line. There's typically like, depending on how big the store is, there's only 4 or 5 associates, maybe less, and then there's like, they're already working with 5 people. Working with one customer typically takes at least 30 to 40 minutes of their time, depending on what they're doing. So know a little bit of what you're looking for. Are you looking for a gun for the range? You're looking for a gun for a concealed carry? You're looking for a gun primarily for home defense or concealed carry or for the range? Or do you want a micro gun, a 3-inch, 3 to 5 inch, 3 to 3.5 inch barrel, a 4-inch barrel, or higher? Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a hammer fired, striker fired or whatever. What caliber are you looking for? 9 millimeter. Some basic questions that you could answer before you go there. What will be best to speed things along? Again, it's no problem asking questions, but it's just those wait times get long for the people that are just waiting to be seen for something they know how to get done. Because again, the average helping time is 30 to 45 minutes, at least for me. You know, I got there, chose my gun, filled out the paperwork, all that stuff. It took like 20 to 30 minutes because I already knew what I wanted and all that stuff. Yeah, while we're waiting for stuff to process, I was checking out other guns and stuff, getting recommendations. But know what you're looking for the most part. So, like, if you're looking for a handgun, just answer these couple questions. Primarily, what is the primary use of this handgun? Is it going to be for the range, home defense, concealed carry? If it's concealed carry, you're already narrowing it down to a three inch all the way up to a 4 inch barrel. If it's for the range, you can stick with a 4 inch to a 5 inch barrel. If it's for home defense, doesn't really matter, just whatever you want for home defense. But at least if it's for the range, or I mean, obviously, if home defense, you should also do, I would say, a 4 inch barrel, just minimum for home defense. I think a 4 inch barrel is best, but it just depends what you like, or what caliber you're looking for. Trying to do 45 ACP? Are you trying to stick with 9 millimeter? You're trying to shoot 22 LR? That will kind of narrow it down from there. Do you want like a 911 style gun with the hammer firing, or do you want a Glock with a slide style handgun? That's already going to narrow down to two different styles. So there's a lot of things you can do to narrow down what kind of handgun you're looking for. So either way, like I said, just do a little bit of research. Again, questions is not a bad thing, but when you're going in there, he's showing you 7 guns and you still don't know what you want. Like, it's annoying for them. I mean, it is their job at the end of the day, but it's just I'm just trying to say, just do a little bit of research before you go. Other things not to do is don't start stripping down the gun. You really don't want to. You really don't want to do that unless you get there okay. Like if you get a Glock, you don't want to take the slide out and take the recoil spring out and the barrel out and all that stuff, and then go even deeper and taking out all kinds of other stuff in your hands. Don't do that. Don't dry fire a gun without permission. So the trigger squeeze or the trigger pull is another selling point on a gun. Some might not like how it feels. Some might like how it feels. That could be a very big deterrent on whether or not they want that gun. So I would say always ask, like I did when I was checking out my Glock. I'd be like, hey, do you mind if I test the trigger? And they're like, oh yeah, just point it. They'll tell you where to point it. Go ahead, do your thing. But don't just meet again, just like bang, bang, bang. Certain guns should not be dry fired, right? So just want to ask their permission. Just say, hey, do you mind? And they'll say yes or no. Respectfully, they'll tell you no, or they'll say, yeah, go ahead. Just make sure you point this way or whatever, right? So you don't want to do that. You don't want to just be dry firing immediately off the jump. I think too, another one is don't butt in to people's conversations. So like if you're waiting for your number to be called and you see someone working with a store owner, don't just jump in. Like let's say they asked, I don't know, whatever question they asked, and then the shop owner, the shop worker's telling them the answer. Don't just jump in and be Mr. Know It All and just say, hey, that's not right. Because then it just gets awkward. Like they don't know who to listen to now. They might be, now if let's say you're completely wrong, now they have to awkwardly tell the customer that they're working with, like, hey, that's not correct. This is the real thing. Now you might get upset and start a whole thing. And the last thing we need is a fight going down in a gun shop when we don't know who's concealed carrying. We don't know people's, stuff like that. So it's just stay out of the conversation, just let them live their life and go from there. Another thing you don't want to do is you don't want to start waving the gun around. So like if I'm right here, you handed me a gun, right? I'll just use this knife for instance. He'll tell you like, how to point and stuff like that, but don't just turn around and be like, and let's say your friends down the hall, like, hey, look at this one right here, look at this nice, and then like they're flagging everyone behind you and whatnot. Again, it's another big issue. Like, don't do that. Like, just stay with your person, talk to the employee, and just stay there. Just stick with him or her, and you'll be all right. So your friend to stay next to you. If you want to show him stuff, you guys want to discuss the firearm. So yeah, so you just want to do that. What else have I seen? What else has I seen? And where shop owners told me some crazy stories sometimes. Um, yeah, I think that's it. Those are just the main ones. Just they're all primarily about safety and just safety reasons in general. Um, Again, we're all new. We all start somewhere. Not everybody was raised with guns. Not everyone has been around guns. So it takes time to get over the initial like nervousness about having it. Like for me, when I first got into guns, I'd always be nervous holding on. Like not at the range, I wouldn't be nervous, but when I'm in the store, like with just me and the workers, my hands would be shaky and wouldn't know how to. I forget how to manipulate the slide lock and stuff like that, and just because I'm always just playing in my head at the time, I was always playing like safety in my head, like especially like when I'm checking out the gun, I'm like looking at it, not like this, but I'm looking at it, and like you know, sometimes the shop owner or the horse that I'm working with always get in front of me. Like, let's say they were here, now they get in front of me, and I'm like, guy, like I'm trying to not point this at you and flag in any way, because I've had my share of times when I've flagged my brother-in-law or I flagged people that I was with when I first was handling guns, and I got told like, hey, be careful, right? He and I both knew the gun was unloaded, but that's not how you act when you have a firearm. Yeah, so just do some research when you go in there. When you before you go in, just know what you're kind of looking for. Even if you're just looking around, shopping around, tell them that from the beginning, like, hey, I'm just shopping around. I really just want to see how this feels, and just I just want to see how this feels. And would you mind showing me? Do you have XYZ guns? And then just see if they mind showing you any of those guns. And just go from there. Just be honest. Just like when you're buying a car, hey, I'm just shopping around. Like, do you have these cars? I want to test drive these, and if I like them, then we'll go from there. But if not, just really just look into it. All right. So those are the top three couple things not to do when you're at the gun store. Just stay safe out there. Be careful. Stay safe.